With September coming to an end and the weather starting to get colder, it's beginning to feel more and more like true football season as each week passes. With the conclusion of the recent Monday Night Football matchups, this NFL regular season is officially 3 weeks old. It goes without saying the first 3 games are just the tip of the iceberg, and there is still plenty of time for things to change as the year progresses. However, at the same time, the first couple of weeks of action has given fans a glimpse of what to expect as we get deeper and deeper into the season. For example, it's fair to say 49ers fans can expect a lot of winning, given the fact they have one of the most well-rounded teams in the NFL. Bears fans can expect a lot of losing, since they're very clearly in the dark, dreadful stages of a rebuild. Jets fans can expect lots of frustration with Zach Wilson back at quarterback, since the team has had abysmal offensive numbers while he's under center, and so on. Without a doubt, one of the most talked about teams in the league to begin this season is the Miami Dolphins, and for good reason. Over the past few seasons, they've managed to construct an absolute powerhouse offense under what many consider to be one of the top young coaches in the NFL. They're coming off a historic win against the Broncos on Sunday, where they put up 70 points to improve their record to 3-0 without one of their top receivers playing. Many people believe this is the year they take the next step in potentially bringing a Super Bowl back to Miami. Things are going great for them, and fans have every right to have high hopes for this squad. But the future didn't always look so bright for this franchise, considering just 4 years ago, they were one of the worst teams in the NFL. So in this video, we're going to break down the incredible rebuild of the Miami Dolphins offense from their poor play in 2019 to their star-studded roster in 2023. Before I get into it, welcome to the War Room. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you're new, and let's get straight to it. It was very clear heading into the 2019 season that the Miami Dolphins were beginning the rebuilding phase, and as a result, were not expected to be good at all. For starters, they went into the season with a brand new head coach. It was announced on New Year's Eve of 2018 that the team was moving on from former head coach Adam Gase after just 3 seasons. In early February of 2019, they announced they were hiring Brian Flores to be the 12th head coach in Dolphins history. Not only that, but 1 month after Flores was hired, news broke that longtime quarterback Ryan Tannehill was being traded to the Titans, followed by a move 3 days later to acquire veteran quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick on a 2-year deal. Combine that with Kalen Ballage, a former backup running back entering his 2nd season, now being the starter getting majority of touches, plus a receiving core that was pretty lackluster besides their lone star Devontae Parker, and you have a team projected to win about 5 games for the 2019-2020 season. Turns out those projections were spot on, as Miami finished the year 5-11. Last place in the AFC East, and 5th worst record in the NFL. The good news for the Dolphins is that this landed them the 5th overall pick in the 2020 draft, a draft class that gave them a legitimate shot at landing a future franchise quarterback. To nobody's surprise, the 2019 Heisman winner Joe Burrow went 1st overall to the 2-14 Bengals. With the Redskins, Lions, and Giants all passing on QBs with their picks, that left the Dolphins with a huge decision to make at pick number 5. At this point in the draft, it was between 2 quarterbacks, 2018 Heisman runner-up Tua Tagovailoa or star quarterback for Oregon, Justin Herbert. Many mock drafts at the time were about 50-50, and it really was a big question of who Miami would end up selecting. Although Tua dealt with some injuries in his junior year at Alabama, keeping him off the field, Dolphin scouts saw great potential in him when he was healthy on the field. Another report stated that while Herbert was a phenomenal passer, Tua's mobility and ability to be a dual-threat quarterback in the NFL was ultimately the deciding factor. So the Dolphins took Tua, followed by Herbert, who was selected by the Chargers at 6. Looking back, you can't really go wrong with either one. Both teams got their guy. Miami wanted to be patient with their young quarterback and didn't want to throw him into the fire right away. So Tua began the 2020-21 season as the backup to Ryan Fitzpatrick, who led the team to a 3-3 record before their Week 7 bye. A bye week that changed the trajectory of this rebuild, because during this bye week is when the team decided to name Tua the starting QB for the rest of the season. A decision that was, quote, heartbreaking for Fitzpatrick. However, this proved to be the correct move, because Miami finished the year with an impressive 10-6 record, just 1 game out of their first playoff appearance since 2016, and their first season with a positive point differential since 2014. Tua's rookie year stats were nothing that really jump out at you, but the team overall simply found ways to win. Other than the change at QB, the rest of the offense was similar to the prior year, Myles Gaskin showed what he could do in his sophomore season as the team's starting halfback, while again, not much else to talk about besides Devontae Parker as wide receiver 1. Despite finishing short of the playoffs, going from 5-11 to 10-6 in just one season is the type of turnaround teams in the NFL would kill for. It's fair to say they might have overachieved a little in this season, but the team was clearly improving nonetheless. Heading into the 2021 draft, the Dolphins front office made a very wise decision. Instead of drafting at their original spot at 12, they made a trade with the Eagles to move all the way up to pick number 6, with the intention of drafting a young receiver to pair with their young quarterback. And that's exactly what Miami did, but not just any receiver. The Dolphins selected Tua's former college teammate at Alabama, Jalen Waddle. This pick not only gives them another offensive weapon besides Devontae Parker, but it guarantees immediate chemistry between your two franchise cornerstones before they even take a single snap together in the NFL. Right away in their first season as NFL teammates, there was a connection. In Waddle's rookie year, he tallied over 1,000 receiving yards from over 100 receptions and 6 touchdowns. Due to injury, Parker only started in 8 games that year, though he put up good numbers in games he played, while Myles Gaskin had another below-average season in the backfield. The Fins were 7-5 in games Tua started, and finished the season with a 9-8 record. Once again, Miami barely missed the playoffs, and while that always stings, there were still plenty of positives to take away from the year. Their franchise quarterback had a very slight improvement in his second season, and the decision to trade up for Jalen Waddle proved to be the correct one. Yes, it's technically a step backwards from their 10-6 season the year before, but the bulk of this rebuild hasn't even happened yet. If they could add 1 or 2 more offensive weapons, the Miami Dolphins could take their rebuild to the next level and be a force to be reckoned with. GM Chris Grier knew all of this, so after the 2021 season concluded, he went to work. On the Monday following the final game of the year, also known as Black Monday, they fired head coach Brian Flores after 3 seasons with the team, in a move that was met with backlash at the time. About 1 month following this, in February, the team made their decision to hire 49ers offensive coordinator Mike McDaniel. McDaniel is considered to be one of the great young coaching minds in football. Starting as an intern for the Broncos in 2005, he slowly worked his way up, appearing in the Super Bowl with the Falcons as their offensive assistant coach, and again with the Niners as their running game coordinator. Based on his previous coaching history, the Miami Dolphins felt like he was the guy they needed to lead this team, giving him his first head coaching job of his career. Now that they got the coaching search out of the way, it was time to look back at the roster. One constant throughout this rebuild that you might have noticed is that there hasn't been much to talk about when it comes to the running back position. It was almost a non-existent factor in the Dolphins offense. So on March 17th, 2022, the franchise inked veteran running back Raheem Mostert to a 1-year deal just north of $2 million. Low risk, potentially high reward. But they weren't even close to being done yet, because less than 1 week later, they stunned the football world in a blockbuster trade, landing 6-time Pro Bowler and 3-time All-Pro receiver Tyreek Hill from the Chiefs in exchange for a 1st, 2nd, and 4th round pick in 2022 and a 4th and 6th rounder in 2023. For a short 2 weeks, the Dolphins had Waddle, Hill, and Parker as their receiving core. That was until Miami made a trade with the Patriots, sending Parker to New England for a 2023 3rd rounder. Doesn't matter regardless, since going from Parker to Hill is a major upgrade. And just like that, you look up and realize the Dolphins have a 24-year-old quarterback heading into his 3rd season, a 24-year-old star wide receiver heading into his 2nd season, one of the best receivers in the league right beside him, with a potential 1,000-yard rusher led by an offensive mastermind. Pretty good rebuild, I'd say. As expected, there were high hopes for this Dolphins team in 2022. Tua Tagovailoa made the most of his offensive weapons, throwing for almost 900 more passing yards than the previous year, a career high in touchdowns with just 8 interceptions. Plus, he led the league in yards per passing attempt, yards per completion, and quarterback rating, landing him a top 10 finish for MVP. Jalen Waddle had the 7th most receiving yards in the NFL, while leading the league in yards per catch at 18.1 plus 8 touchdowns. Tyreek Hill was 2nd in the league in receiving yards at just over 1,700 plus 7 touchdowns of his own. These numbers sent him to his 7th career Pro Bowl and made him an All-Pro receiver for the 4th time in his career. While for the first time in a while, Miami had a competent running back, as Mostert's 891 rushing yards and 202 receiving yards made him the first Dolphins running back since Jay Ajayi in 2017 to tally over 1,000 yards from scrimmage. Once again, the team finished with a 9-8 record, but this time it was good enough to make the playoffs for the first time since 2016. But unfortunately for Dolphins fans, Tua wasn't available for this game. Last season, one of the biggest stories was Tua Tua dealing with several concussions throughout the year. There were times he couldn't even walk off the field because of a nasty collision with the ground. In an incredibly scary moment in Cincinnati, he had to be carted off the field as he lay motionless on his back, causing him to miss a few weeks. But the final straw came on Christmas Day when Tua got concussed during the game against the Packers. However, since he didn't show symptoms at the time, he stayed in this game, risking even further injury and possibly even brain damage. Once it was confirmed a few days later that he was in fact concussed during the game, the Dolphins had no choice but to preserve their future and shut him down for the rest of the season. Fast forward to the wildcard game in Buffalo, and the third stringer Skylar Thompson was the team's starting quarterback, with a chance to give the Dolphins their first playoff win since 2000. He didn't play badly and kept Miami in it until the very end, but they came up short, losing 34-31, ending their season. One big takeaway from the Dolphins last year is that when Tua is healthy and he has McDaniel calling plays with Waddle, Hill, and Mostert on offense, this team can be dangerous. Well, after just 3 weeks in this young NFL season, we've got a glimpse of how dangerous they can be. In a Week 1 shootout against the Chargers in LA, Miami came out on top thanks to 466 passing yards and 3 touchdowns from Tua, and 11 catches for 215 yards and 2 touchdowns from Tyreek Hill. In Week 2 in New England, this time it was Mostert doing the scoring, as he ran for 121 yards and 2 touchdowns, as Waddle and Hill contributed once again. And in the infamous Week 3 matchup for Broncos fans, the Miami Dolphins showed what they're truly capable of, winning by a score of 70-20. Miami's 70 points are the 4th most ever in a game in NFL history. Tua threw for 309 yards and 4 touchdowns. Rookie running back Devon Achane had his first breakout game in the NFL, rushing for 203 yards with 2 rushing touchdowns and 2 receiving touchdowns. Raheem Mostert ran for 82 yards with 3 rushing touchdowns and 1 receiving touchdown. Tyreek Hill, of course, had a TD of his own to go along with 157 receiving yards, and the Dolphins did all of this with Jalen Waddle watching from the bench since he was forced to sit out with a concussion. Miami had a total of 726 yards on offense, the most in the Super Bowl era. They also had a total of 5 rushing touchdowns and 5 receiving touchdowns in this massacre, making them the only team to ever accomplish this feat in the Super Bowl era. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, there's still a long way to go in this NFL season. I'm not saying the Dolphins are going to stay undefeated and they're guaranteed to win the Super Bowl, but what I am saying is if their offensive core is healthy, and that's a big if, the NFL should be very afraid of this team. It doesn't matter who you're playing, 70 points in a game doesn't happen by accident. This offense is legit. And this past week versus Denver is just a microcosm of all the incredible moves made by the Dolphins front office since 2019. From Tua and Waddle being drafted, to the McDaniel hiring, to the Mostert signing, to the Hill trade, it's all been building towards this moment. Regardless of how the Dolphins finish this season, there's no denying that this was a masterclass rebuilding of the offense these past 4 years. And only time will tell if this group is good enough to bring the Lombardi Trophy back to Miami. How far do you think the Dolphins will go this season? Let me know in the comments below. Please like the video if you enjoyed and subscribe to the channel if you're new. I plan on making NFL content like this throughout the entire season, so don't miss out. Thank you for watching, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.